Hey everyone, I am Carrie Kiefer-Fisher with 5-Star Real Estate, and I am here with the Kiefer-Fisher team, and we are excited because we're being joined by Vicki and Josie with AVB, one of our larger home builders in the area. And we're here today at one of their new construction sites, but we want to learn a little bit more about the new construction process and how that's been affected throughout our pandemic the past year, 18 months. And so we're super excited to have you join us and let us know a little bit about what's going on with you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, so I guess just in perspective, if we take a look at AVB, how many homes might you typically sell in a given year?
We build roughly 50 between condos, townhomes, and single family. On average, we do about 50 a year.
Okay, and that's a mix of custom versus spec?
Yep. Everything, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And through 2020 and now 2021, how have your numbers been skewed?
We're really tracked to be about the same. Right now we're at about 51 for this year. We were 54 last year. And by the end of this year, we'll probably hit 54. So I'd guess we're going to be the same in numbers, but our sales volume is higher. The average cost per house obviously has gone up, but I've also gotten a lot of customs in the $1 million plus this last year.
Wow.
Versus the year before.
Right.
So sales, number volumes are going up.
Okay, so you really haven't been affected as far as quantity from the pandemic.
No, actually 20 was busier than 19. I mean, I wrote more agreements in the year from the time I got sent home in March through that following April than I've done in 16 years. More, wow. Yeah, more and deals.
Would you attribute that then just because of the sheer lack of inventory?
I think that's part of it. I think the other piece of it is that people started thinking about where they wanted to live, and people were at home and needed more space or wanted different types of space. Mm-hmm. So they decided to make a change. Because some of those people were relocation folks for sure, but some of them were people that lived here that just said, okay, I need something different. I need something bigger. Or I need another dedicated office in the house because now both of us are working from home.
Right. So would you say then you've had the same quantity? Prices have obviously affected resales. I know that it's also affected new construction. So I guess speak to that a little bit on how the appreciation and pricing and how that's affected with the appraisal process.
So as far as appraisals, I have not had any issues so far, but we are also really proactive with our appraisers. So we provide them a lot of information. We even provide them sales data. We go in and give them comps just in case. Mm-hmm. So we've had really good luck with that so far. And then of course some of our buyers are cash buyers, so there is no appraisal. It doesn't really matter.
That helps.
A lot of them are.
We do appreciate that.
A lot of them are cash buyers.
Okay.
As far as pricing itself, at one point lumber quadrupled in price.
Right.
It's probably come down from its highest point about $50,000, but it's never going to go back to where it was. It was $450 a linear foot, and now it's $750, so it's never going to really be what it was, but it's come down a lot from its highest peak, which was really difficult because we had contracts in process already.
Oh, absolutely. So
that
how
we
did
had
that?
said, well, we're going to guarantee your price.
Oh, so you really did? You guaranteed those prices for those that started?
We lost money for sure.
So what about those families that started during those high prices and now the prices have come down? Have there been any adjustments or?
Anything that was contracted higher, we did what we call an allowance amount for them.
Okay. So
that if we didn't need it, they got it back. If we saw savings, they got it back.
That's great.
And now it's pretty much leveled off. So now we're doing it as we always did. That lumber was never an allowance item. Here's what it cost. Right. But because now that it's settled, we don't have to do that anymore and add an additional allowance just in case, because banks won't cover that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you've had the extreme prices for materials, but I also know that there's been a shortage. So how
Yeah.
has the shortage of not only lumber but other materials, cabinets
Yeah.
and things like that affected the build times?
So lumber isn't really a problem for shortages. The build times have gotten longer because certain items windows now are 18 weeks out where they never used to be. So it's not that we can't get them, it's just that it takes a lot longer to get them. So we're moving certain items because there are about 5 or 6 categories, right? And you know, you start with exteriors, and bath accessories are the last thing. Well, some of those things in that 5 category have been moved up into the 1st or 2nd category because they're taking so much longer to get.
So you're having to order them early on.
Yes.
Selections
Earlier.
done up front.
Yeah,
Ordered.
and the time frame has definitely extended. I mean, you know, on average, when you start working with somebody to help them design a home or pick a plan, you're about a year. I mean, unless they really do a great job of getting everything picked out early, because typically when we're behind, it's because clients don't make their selections on time. That's usually what holds us up. Now it's a little bit of both, in that it takes longer to get some of those products too.
Gotcha.
Where it used to be a 9-month period, now it's 12 months.
Okay, so if someone today wanted to build a new home, they would start that process, and they're going to realize a full year really before they're going to be able to get
Yep.
certificate of occupancy
Yep.
and be able to move.
Depending on the size of the house, and it could be over a year. If it's a 6,000 square foot house or bigger, it'll be more than a year probably.
Okay.
For the construction schedule, from the time they do break ground though?
So typically from the time they break ground, you have to pour the foundation. That has to sit for 30 days, right? So what I like to talk about is from when we start framing.
Okay.
So depending on the size of the house, from when we start framing, it's 6 to 7 months or 7 to 10,
Sure.
depending on the size of the house.
From the
Obviously,
start
the
of
bigger the
framing.
house, the
Yep.
longer it takes.
Perfect.
And you get your final, we can move you in once the house is painted. Once we have it all painted, then we can really dial it in and say, okay, here's when you'll be able to get in.
But that's the one thing about AVB, is that they are constantly producing in our area. They're one of the people that have still stayed building spec homes and customs, so they always have comparisons to share with the appraisers, and that helps a ton.
Right, and some of our clients sometimes wonder why are you listing, like when I sell a house in Barrington that's a custom, I still list it for sale, even though, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but even though it's not really for sale. Because you have to in order to get the appraisers,
Right, you
the
need the
comps they
records.
need. I mean, you just have to, and we do it for everybody, so. Some people have a hard time with that because, you know, but that's how they were able to get their appraisal, because I did it for the person before them that I built. So that's how we keep those counts.
Yeah, and spec
Where
homes
they
are
need
hard to
be.
find with most builders. Nobody's putting their neck out in this market
Yeah.
for
And we
materials and
right.
cost and timing
and like I said, we provide a lot of stuff to the appraiser, including, well, here's where material costs have gone. They have to take that into consideration when they're appraising a new house. It's just the reality of it.
So where are some of the difficulties in the process? You mentioned buyers not making their selections. Anything with financing?
Not really.
Okay.
We use pretty much only credit unions, because large banks don't want to do construction loans. So, you know, Lake Michigan and all of those, and they are so used to working with us. We've got a great accounting team that has a great process. So they really like working with us because we're so organized. So financing's never, unless it's from the client's perspective,
Right.
we don't have a problem with it. The biggest difficulty is some of the categories, like appliances. I don't have a refrigerator or a dishwasher in this house because the ones I wanted I can't get. So I've had to make a new selection. And that's probably, of all the categories, the worst is appliances to get stuff.
And you guys, for the most part, will include all of the kitchen every time. What about washer dryer?
No.
Okay.
No.
Someone's on their own.
Yeah, I mean, unless a custom client wants it included on the front end, we typically don't. We have them do that after they take occupancy, but we will.
Right.
It's a custom, but in spec houses, we don't do it. It's such a personal, the kind people want,
They bring them a lot of
Yeah.
times
and
too, from
sometimes they
other
bring
homes.
them, right, exactly.
So this time of year, or what, is there any time of year that doesn't allow you to pour foundations, that delays it even more?
Occasionally in February, if it gets to be 17 degrees or below, we can't pour. So we'll be pushed off. Now there's one year I think we were pushed off 4 weeks, which was huge. That's unusual.
Freeze for a long time.
If we get pushed off a week or two, can happen. But we pour all year, unless it gets too cold. And in, the years that we pour, when it's above 17, we blanket and do all the things you need to do to make sure that the foundation's gonna be in good shape.
Now, there was a period of time during the pandemic you were shut down just like we were for 6 weeks, and nobody was really doing anything on the job sites, right?
Right.
But yet you still sold the same amount of homes, it sounds like.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. I am amazed by that.
And we still got them done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously some of those houses that were under construction got delayed. We didn't finish them when we initially anticipated we would. But I worked with more clients virtually that year. I mean, I really thought that I was gonna be at home twiddling my thumbs.
Right.
I worked, seriously, no exaggeration, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, just to keep up.
On Zoom.
Yeah, on Zoom,
Like the rest of us.
exactly. Yeah, I learned how to use Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we use it even more.
I do too.
Yeah, and electronic signing, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. And so I signed several agreements electronically and never met them face to face, only on Zoom.
Wow.
Do you want to talk about your showroom? Because I know you're proud of it and that's something that's
Oh, that
important
design
to
center is
people.
beautiful. It really is.
And it's
We
local,
have-
so that people don't have to travel places to find their
Right,
choices.
because we do work with a lot, like right now I've got probably 3 clients that are Detroit, Chicago. So if they're gonna make a trip over, it's really good that they can be in there and get some concentrated work done without then having to go elsewhere. Most of the vendors we work with though are local, so they might have to make a trip to the kitchen shop or Bonema's for stone or but the new design center is gorgeous, and it has a lot of the materials that people can pick from without ever having to leave AVB's office. So it's really worth dropping by and seeing it.
So they can
Sometime.
touch and feel and
Yeah.
actually see.
I mean,
what
we
it's
don't
like.
have, obviously light fixtures
Right.
and stuff, but we have plumbing,
Right.
we have flooring, countertops.
So is what you're saying, if we had clients that were considering new construction, we could make an appointment at AVB and say, hey, this is a design center, this would be
Yeah.
really easy, because I think people get overwhelmed with the thought of
Choosing.
picking everything out, doing a new build, and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
So it would
yeah.
make it a little bit easier if they could stop in and
Yeah, and make sure they know we have a dedicated selections coordinator that works with them throughout the whole process, so they're not on their own ever. And Jackie or whomever, that person is helping them will help them as much or as little as they need.
yeah.
Some people have a pretty good handle on what they want,
Mm-hmm.
but Jackie's so talented with
She's
colors
phenomenal.
and, so if they have a theme in their head or they might pick the flooring, then she'll help them pick the cabinet that goes with it. And she does a really great job,
And she stays up on all colors and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
that's up
All
and
that
to
stuff.
date. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great. Mhm.
for sure, and really holds their hand throughout the process.
And that's located on Center?
Yeah, yeah.
So if someone were looking and considering new construction, right? Because we all experience the shortage of inventory even still.
Yeah.
And I just got asked the other day, okay, Carrie, tell me, how does that new construction process work?
So typically, and you actually all have in your packet kind of a brief overview bullet point of sort of all of the steps.
Okay.
So, the first step is to qualify what they can afford to build, right? Just like when you're working with somebody for a resale, you have to know what they can afford. So, that's really the first step. Get them with a lender and find out what they qualify for. And then where do they want to build? Do they want to build in one of our neighborhoods, or are you going to find them land to build on? Once they know that, then we would work with them to talk about design. Do we pick a floor plan that we have in our portfolio, or do they want to actually design something specific to themselves? And whichever that case is, that house still has to be designed to the home site. So not every plan fits. Some have to be garage left or garage right, depending on the topography of the lot. And we require a design deposit. So we take a deposit that goes towards the cost of building the house, but it allows me to engage a landscape architect to do the site plan. You have to have a site plan to design a house because you have to know where your setbacks are. How big of a house can I fit on this particular site? What are the municipality requirements? Is it 10 foot on the sides or 15? Is it 35 in height, 25? You know, what all of that is. And it also allows me to engage either my CAD department or a designer to help them design it. And then once we do that, and we have the design and they've approved it, and we've talked about specification level. So do we say, okay, yeah, the Ellis plan I saw, I like those cabinets, that flooring would work, the plumbing fixtures are fine. That's where we start. So we create that specification based on that house. So they have a really good understanding of what they're getting for the price. And then most people want, oh, well, I really would like to have beams in the ceiling. How much would that cost? So we create a sheet that's called the option sheet, and we put all kind of crown molding in a room, whatever it is that they might like on top of what they saw in this particular house. And that takes about 30 days, roughly, plus or minus, once the drawings are done and all those specifications are done, and we send it out. We have typically 3 vendors in each category that bid it, so they all know that they're bidding against 2 of their competitors, so it keeps them honest, right? Keeps it competitive. We get all that back, we deliver the pricing to the client, they decide from that option sheet what gets included, and then that's kind of the whole package. If it's in one of our neighborhoods, it's the lot, you know, and those option sheets. And that's everything that gets given to the lender to start the appraisal process.
Okay.
And the financing process.
Okay, so and I was just going to ask when that financing piece will start for you.
So before we sign an agreement, a construction agreement, and if you're building in our neighborhood, the construction agreement is separate from the home site agreement. But together, that's what, you know, puts together your whole package. So they have already been qualified. They would have to provide me a qualification letter so that I'm not signing an agreement that they're not qualified to borrow. That's when the bank starts the financing. That's when they order the appraiser and all that. We provide that contract to them. We provide the drawings to them. We provide the deposit agreement along with copies of the deposit checks so that they have all of that. And that's what starts the appraisal process.
Okay, so that appraisal is kind of really getting done before you start the house in some sense.
Yeah. Oh no,
That
it
way you
is.
know that we have
Kind of
that
just
we're on
like when we
track.
sell a spec house, right?
Right.
Most often they want to know the appraisal's going to come in before they agree to buy the house. It's sort
Right.
of the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any kind of interesting stories of what you've seen happen over the past 18 months on your end?
Just the amount of cash buyers is, you know, I haven't had to worry so much about appraisals, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of cash buyers. Yeah, and I think a lot of them are from out of, out of town, not out of state. Some of them out of state, but mostly relocation folks are financing. A lot of doctors who you have to do some creative financing for, because they may not have the deposit amount that's required to hold a house for them.
Right.
So AVB is pretty good about creatively figuring out a way to make it work for them.
Trying to figure out how to get the deal done.
Right. We can think out of the box when we have to.
Right. Yeah. Well, that you're local, that helps, right? We're not dealing with somebody that we can't talk to and work through.
So I would say the only thing about appraisals that I have had difficulties with is when they are out of town appraisers, which we're seeing more of. Because there are so many deals needing appraisals, the local guys aren't picking them up. And so these out of town guys are picking them up, and they have no idea where Barrington Shores is,
Right.
what happens there. So even more important that they have the information they need. And, I just try to bring up that concern so that everybody's in the loop about, let's hope that this works, because a lot of times it doesn't, because they don't know our market.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
we
that's-
see that even in resale.
Yeah. So that can be a challenge with appraisals.
When I'm showing a home to a client and I see it's AVB, and my client as well, when they see it's AVB, they think, oh, okay, quality custom home. For people that aren't in our market, is that the niche they go for, or how would you explain the niche, how AVB compares to some of the other builders in the area?
Well, I think part of it is our process. My brother started the company 40 years ago, and when he was developing Woodbridge, he would have a building designed, right? And then he'd price it, and he'd go, well, I can't afford that. I can't build it. It's too expensive. So that's when he partnered with Daryl, who was the builder. And that's how our process really of helping people design homes that fit their budget was born. And so other than we're all about quality versus quantity, which I think is important, and quite frankly, there's a lot of good builders in town, you know. There are, I should say there's a handful, because a lot of them fell by the wayside either because of the pandemic or even before that with the 2008 recession. You know, we lost some. But there are a handful of really good builders. And it's really just how you kind of get there. But that process has worked really well for us, because there's nothing worse than designing a home and then finding out you cannot afford to build it. And I have clients that come to me that make the mistake of going to an architect without having a builder buy them. We always say, whether it's AVB or it's glass or whoever it is, pick your builder first, because they will sit at the table and help you when you're designing that house to design it to your budget. Because architects, as good as they are, and they are really good and talented, they don't really have a handle on costs like builders do, because we work with it every day. And that's really part of my job when I'm working with a custom client and designing a home for them in one of our neighborhoods. I mean, obviously we have this conversation ahead of time about what their budget is and what they're looking for, and whether it's a portfolio home or it's a custom home. I say to them, well, you can do, 2,400 square foot above grade, and you can't finish the basement for that. And you kind of walk through that with them to make sure before we sign that design deposit that we're all on the same page. But I think maybe quality versus quantity has been the one reason that our homes stand the test of time. We're not willing to just slap them up to slap them up. We gotta do them right. And we do things that aren't required by code, but we do it because it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and I can speak because I built a home with AVB 17 years ago, and it's the process. It was wonderful. We still talked about it, with the construction manager to this day. It was wonderful. And so it really is a wonderful process to go through.
Right. We try to make it as simple and painless as possible. There are parts of it that aren't as fun as other, like, trying to get all the specs and all that stuff ready and talking about all the money and, okay, what can be included and what can't. For some people that's difficult, but once you get through all that and you actually start building it.
You start seeing it happen right before your eyes. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And AVB has been around then for how many years?
40.
40. Okay. Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. And if you're looking and trying to explore whether a new construction home might be right for you, give our team a call and we can get you connected with the team at AVB, and they'll start you on your journey.